Pilates is not just putting exercises together and doing exercise. There's more to it. If I was going to say I'm going to rule the world of Pilates, I would say that everybody should do a minimum mandatory 12 months of anatomy and physiology. That would be one thing that would bring the entire standard of the industry up.
Welcome to Grind It Out Video Podcast. I'm your host, Katie, and today I have Fionna Wheatley with me here for a chat. Let's go.
Hello, my name's Fionna Wheatley. I run my own studio. It's called Timeless Pilates. I'm located in Subiaco in West Australia. I started my Pilates journey as lots of us do, with injury. And when I got pain-free, I was like, right, that's it. I'm going to fix the world by doing Pilates. So, one Pilates person at a time. And I started my training with Bazzi, and then I went on to do an in-house course, and then I went on to do the Australian Pilates Method Association, which is unfortunately now defunct, and Polestar. So if there's a course out there, I've probably done it. I also did Buff Bones, which is an osteoporosis course. So I've done lots of different things. And I've been teaching Pilates full-time probably since I was about 29, so over 25 years or so now, so quite a long time.
What would you like to share today? I know you have some insights on Pilates certifications, being a qualified Pilates teacher.
Yeah, look, I mean, Western Australia has actually gone through quite a big shake-up, because there used to be two sort of main governing bodies, the PAA and the APMA, and because it's a non-regulated industry, and the Australian government changed Pilates instructors' status. So it used to be that we could claim health insurance if we were a certain level of Pilates instructors. And that, sorry, my cat is going to help himself to the camera again. That's something that influenced the level and quality of teaching. So once that once you stopped being able to claim health insurance benefits, I think that opened up the field to a lot of other Pilates instructor providers, and I don't think it necessarily did a lot for the quality of Pilates instructing. There's also the physiotherapy industry also is a very big part of our Pilates community here, and I would say that we've got a fairly good relationship, to be honest, because whenever I run into a sticky client, I send them off to a physiotherapist, because I know that my knowledge is only so much, and that both the client and I benefit from other people's knowledge. So it's a very convoluted sort of situation in Australia, because we do have now only the PAA, which is a registering body for Pilates instructors, and you can do everything in terms of qualification for Pilates instructors, from doing a Fitness Australia course, which is a 48-hour weekend course, and you can call yourself a Pilates instructor, to doing the full Polestar certification, which is a 2-year diploma, I think. I'm not sure, because I did mine for so long ago. So there is a great deal of lack of cohesion in terms of industry standards of what qualification actually is.
What step do you think should be taken to improve the level of education and qualifications for these Pilates teachers?
A really super tricky conversation, because we do have the two tracks in Australia. We've got the physiotherapists who are Pilates instructors, and I do know of some physios who believe that only physios should teach Pilates, because there is a great deal of benefit to be had from it, but there's also a great deal of harm. Like, if you don't know what you're doing when you're teaching, you can actually injure people. Yes. So I do have some sympathy for that. I don't think that people who do a weekend course, personally, should be allowed to call themselves Pilates instructors, because Pilates is not just putting exercises together and doing exercise. There's more to it. There's the breath and the movement and understanding your own posture and how you relate to space and all of that kind of thing. And I don't think you can get that from a really short course. You don't cover enough of it. I think if you're doing a short course, you're learning exercises. You're not actually learning Pilates. If I was going to say I'm going to rule the world of Pilates, I would say that everybody should do a minimum mandatory 12 months of anatomy and physiology, so they actually have an understanding of insertions and origins of muscles and how the muscles work synergistically together. I think that that should be a minimum standard before you go on and do your training. However, realistically, because of where Pilates sits in terms of fitness in Australia, unless you're a physio, you're not going to get that level of qualification. So yeah, that's a tricky thing. I think I would make, as a minimum, I would make it mandatory that everybody did physiology and anatomy as a basis for learning to be a teacher. That would be one thing that would bring the entire standard of the industry up.
Sometimes we would think there is a gap between what you learn from classes and the experience you get from actually working in a Pilates studio and teaching people. Would you think experience would compensate for the lack of certification or quality of Pilates teachers?
Good question, because if you look at the traditional way that Pilates was actually taught, it was actually a hands-on apprenticeship basis where you worked hand in hand with a senior teacher, and there was no formal qualification. It was literally done through an apprenticeship thing. When Clara and Joseph started training people, it was done as an apprenticeship. So yes, to a certain degree, I think, yes, you can do that. But I think that your understanding of what you can get out of an exercise is deepened by having that book knowledge as well as physical knowledge. And on the same token, I think you actually need to do those apprenticeship hours because bodies move. There's no point in reading something from a book because a book doesn't show you how a body could twist or how a hypermobile person can change an exercise and actually completely not get what the purpose of the exercise actually is. So yes, you absolutely need to do hours with bodies. Does it replace book learning? No. Does book learning replace the actual physical practice of it? No, you need both.
Would you say that having the book learning and courses would minimize the risk of not knowing how to do all the movements and anatomy and maybe potentially hurting the clients that you teach, but actually working and having the experience would give you more working experience?
Will it minimize it? No, but it mitigates the exercises that you choose for people. So, for example, with diastasis recti, for example, immediately post-birth, if you have an absolute rip-roaring diastasis recti that is not bad enough that needs surgery, it doesn't need physio intervention, but it needs the correct muscle recruitment, you actually need to understand how the muscles work in order to get them to do the exercises. Can you get them to do the exercises and get the same result? I actually can't answer that because I've never done that, because I came from the position of having done the book learning first and then doing the training afterwards. I would assume that if you have really good apprentice teaching, then yes, you could do it just as safely without having the book learning. But I think that the hours that would be required to get that good apprenticeship hours, I'm not sure that we're given the opportunity to do those number of hours to do the learning. It's a tricky one. I think that you need both.
Got it. Okay, so another question. Looking ahead, what do you see as the biggest opportunities and challenges in your Pilates studio?
Western Australia is quite isolated. We are 2,000 or 3,000 kilometres away from the rest of Australia. So ongoing education, so that furthering of knowledge, the reiteration of things that we might have used in the past and forgotten, reinterpretation of information. Like there is a movement that is, I've been reading about online that says that, because it used to be you don't do forward flexion if you've got osteoporosis. There are more and more articles coming out that saying, well, we actually need that range of motion, so we need to be able to teach forward flexion safely. But that sort of ongoing education is not necessarily easily accessible in Western Australia. So that in terms of me personally, ongoing education within the industry is a challenge without lots of travel or doing it purely online. And as I said, I think you need in person as well as online, or as well as book learning. In terms of my studio, it's a matter of that balancing act between having too many students for what I can manage, but not enough to expand. So having enough hours that I could employ someone as a full-time or a part-time one, but growing it to the point where I could afford to do that. I think that in terms of my own studio is the personal challenge. I'm really fortunate because I've got clients that have been coming for probably 20 odd years. So I've got a very stable clientele, and as much as I'm grateful for the stability, the expansion is probably the biggest challenge, especially in the socioeconomic area that I am. There's studios all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Oh, one last one that just popped into my head, actually. For people who don't know Pilates and want to start Pilates just as a client, want to get to know Pilates, what's the difference between Pilates and yoga, and how does it relate to mind and body?
Fabulous, 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 fabulous. Long question. My mother is actually a hatha yoga teacher. And okay, let's take this down. Yoga is now two schools of thought. Yoga is either as a fitness industry or as is proper yoga. So when I say proper yoga is a way of life and almost a religion, because you eat a certain way, you breathe a certain way, you bathe at certain times, you greet the sun and rah. So, but yoga, quite often when people talk about yoga now, they're actually talking about going to a yoga class, doing Ashtanga yoga for an hour and having a nice, stretch and exercise and then going on with their lives, but not actually involving that whole mind body part of yoga that is an essential part of yoga. So if you're talking about fitness yoga and fitness Pilates, they're probably on par. The difference would be that probably the emphasis on fitness Pilates would be on strength. If you are talking about traditional Pilates and Pilates that I teach, then I think that traditional Pilates, again, is a different thing to regular Pilates, and it's different to fitness Pilates. What I teach is kind of an amalgamation of both. So I take the best of all things and kind of mush it into the traditional Pilates exercises. I would say with Pilates, it is trying to brainwash you into using your body the best way that you can every day, all the time. So it's not something that you just walk in and you do and you leave. Sure, you walk into the studio and you walk out and you're straighter and stronger and you feel better. But the ultimate aim is to integrate that so that when you're sitting at the computer, you're not kind of going like this. You're actually sitting up with, you're aware of where your body is in space. So that was a very long and convoluted answer to your question. So the big difference is that you can divide Pilates and yoga into fitness Pilates, and you can divide them into the way of life. If you take the way of life way, then hopefully with yoga and Pilates, you're integrating the things that you're learning to give yourself a better, happier body.
Fabulous answer. I love it.